Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. This week I'm speaking to Srikanth Iyengar. Srikanth is the Group CEO for Europe of Conduent, a major international business process service company with expertise in digital platforms and a technology-focused approach to customer experience. I've known Srikanth for a number of years. I once asked him to speak at a lecture I organised at the London School of Economics in 2007. And in 2009, he featured in a book I wrote about sourcing called Talking Outsourcing. In our conversation, Srikanth talks about the evolution of customer service away from the contact centre to a world of data analytics and emerging technology platforms, and what this really means for the partners asked to provide this kind of expertise by their clients. Okay, so let's go straight to the interview. Okay, so customer service has evolved from the call center to driving the entire relationship with brands. When we're talking about customer experience today, it's so much more than just managing customer calls. How would you now define the service that you're offering to your clients?
So Mark, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I think it's a pleasure. From our perspective, customer experience clearly is an important part of our service offering. But I think from a client's perspective, we believe that our customer experiences services are true contributors to the value of the brand. Today, customer touchpoints are extremely important, and every touchpoint, independent of the channel used, is an opportunity to have a conversation with the customer that brings sort of holistic value from the client's perspective. The other aspect, of course, is the analytics. I think when the information is captured and analyzed, it leads to detailed profiling and personalization of the messaging, the best time to interact with the client, the choice of how to interact, the best channel, so that we can get the customer proactively engaged with the brand and with the client's offering. And of course, there is another component to it, which is the future state intervention, the predictive aspect. We've all seen examples of the likes of an Amazon, where, based on past behavior, one could even predict when something could occur, what the customer taste could be like, and also try and mitigate, negative reactive touch points and make them sort of proactive, productive interventions. So it's not just about the product or service, but also how they are used in the most effective, the most sort of attractive, most seamless way.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned some technologies there, and there's a lot of new emerging technologies being deployed by brands to improve the customer relationship. You mentioned data analytics. From artificial intelligence to machine learning to virtual reality, there's so many new emerging technologies being used. So would you say that what we're actually talking about here is almost a modern CX project is digital transformation?
Yes, very much so. Clearly, it's being acknowledged that digital interactions and digital transformation are more than just adding a digital channel like chat or social media. It's a bit like the tip of the iceberg. What you see on the surface is a very, very small component of the 9/10 of the iceberg that's actually under the surface, right? So clearly, to be able to get closer to the customer, one needs to personalize the conversations. What that means is one leverages analytics, and that analytics needs a very, very strong data set that could be structured, unstructured data based on all the interactions that the customer has. And these could be from multiple sources, not just social media, of course, with the customer's opt-in, so that we are in alignment with data privacy laws. And of course, then there are predictive actions about what actions brands could take to create customer satisfaction and loyalty, to optimize, for example, the onboarding process or optimize the customer journey through the process. So therefore, technologies like analytics, technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, are very, very key to successful digital transformation, and which is why you will see that a lot of companies who are looking to become digital interactions leaders are investing heavily in technology. In fact, if you look at Conduent ourselves, our mission, our sort of objective is to be a digital interactions leader, and therefore we've earmarked a few $100 million to be invested specifically in technology, because without those technology platforms, I think our objective of being that digital interactions leader is probably not going to work. So clearly, technology is critical.
Okay, and so are you finding that clients that used to come to you and say, look, we need you to manage a 200-seat call center, are they now asking you how they can deploy AI or other digital tools to get closer to their customers? I mean, can you tell me about a couple of examples of these type of projects that you worked on?
So that's a great point. The requirement that the client is bringing to us is changing. Like you said, maybe 5, 7 years ago, the client would come and say, "Can I have a 200 people call center?" But today, the client's saying, "Look, can you set something up so that I have better interactions with my end customers, leading to a higher satisfaction score that translates to, let's say, higher sales or higher throughput or higher upselling," right? I'll take an example. One of the examples in the automotive space was we introduced something called the digital glove box for automotive clients, which was probably our first example of a digitally transformed service offering. This service is based on a fully digitized car manual that's made available in an app used on mobile devices. We've evolved our digital services since then. Today, one of the biggest buzzwords or buzz phrases in the automotive industry is connected vehicles and IoT services, where there's an automated connection between the car and customer engagement centers. So we've actually got a customer engagement center for some of our large automotive OEM customers to support the driver with concierge services. When alerts pop, we contact the driver and advise her or him on what to do and help take care of any required actions. For example, maybe a towing service is required, or there's a visit to the workshop that needs to be scheduled, and so on and so forth. And this makes the customer experience better and improves customer loyalty, especially in the industry where customers are moving from owning the asset, which is owning the car, to using the asset, which could be a combination of sort of options. And I think the last thing I do want to say here in this example is, if you relate to, some of the IoT practices or models I talked about, we also started a proof of concept on fleet health management to predict when problems could occur with vehicles and prescribe what could be done to prevent this. And this is what we call future state intervention. So clearly, I think this is what we believe truly a digital transformation. I could take more examples, for example, in the banking space, but let me pause there if you have a follow-up.
No, I was gonna say that's very interesting because we're looking at a customer journey now that is much more than what we would previously just call customer service. There's various engagement, communication. There's opportunity for sales and marketing that's taking place there. But does this mean that some of your clients are having to restructure the way that their business actually works? Because it seems like all these different customer-facing teams that used to work separately, they all need to actually now work together in a much more coordinated way.
Absolutely. If you take many industries, clients traditionally were structured along a service portfolio. So if you had a product or a service, the entire structure was along that product or service. You had the front end for that product or service, supported by mid-office processes, supported by some technology that was very, let's say, customized to that product or service. Today, most clients are taking a very client-centric view, where you have the client at the center of things, and then you have a suite of services or utilities that the client consumes from the customer that we have. And then the supporting processes are built along that client-centric view. So, if I take another example in the banking industry, we partnered with a challenger bank to contribute to a fully digital customer journey. This bank is not organized along having, let's say, a retail bank or having a separate wealth management offering or having a separate, let's say, mortgages or sort of insurance business. It's a fully digital customer journey. The customer could choose to, avail of any of the services the bank provides. And given that it's fully digital, there are interactive knowledge bases underlying each of these services based on AI, which result in the automated generation of new and updated content for future interactions. So, for example, if a client contacts us using chat with a problem, and has a problem, let's say, logging on using Internet Explorer, we could keep this case, reuse the solution for similar customer issues in the future. We've got a Conduent conversational platform called DARA, D-A-R-A, which enables our clients to fully automate end-user engagements. The virtual assistant automated voice, non-voice channels provides accuracy, consistency, and using the AI, the content is very customized, cutting across all of these services that I talked about for the challenger bank. And that's clearly something that will take traditional banks a little longer to get to, but you can see if you take I take the UK as an example, all the high street banks in the UK are organizing themselves similarly to make the customer or the client at the center of things.
Yeah, that's interesting, the way that entire journey's changed. Well, there is a great deal more expertise that you're offering in some very complex services compared to, as you mentioned, 5 or 7 years ago when we were mainly focused on just contact centers alone. But why is it that when I talk to a lot of companies that are buying customer service expertise from service companies, they're still talking about FTEs? We still seem to be pricing these kind of services as if we're still buying from a contact center, people in a contact center. I mean, how has the pricing model for customer experience service evolved? And are we still pricing everything as if we're selling contact center services?
I think we need to differentiate between the costs and how these are priced. In the past, the value proposition that a service provider brought to the table was the ability to scale. And therefore, the cost, which was per FTE, was translated into a price which is per FTE. But clearly, increasingly, the service provider, the partner, as I prefer to call it, is taking a larger role in the value chain, right? So, and I can speak for Conduent, we are taking more ownership of the value chain with our clients, which means that we put skin in the game, so we are incented more on outcomes. So like I said to you earlier, in some cases, we're actually committing to clients that we will either commit to a certain higher net promoter score and or commit to a certain higher sale for a particular, let's say, upsell or cross-sell. And therefore, we're not then charging them per FTE, we're almost charging them either per sale or per outcome, whatever that mechanism is. Clearly, in that mechanism, we take on higher risk, but what that also means is we have a greater understanding of the customer's domain, which means we bring those skill sets to the table, and therefore our costing model or our pricing model needs to take those investments into account. The other thing also is that we've got a vested interest in helping the client grow. If you looked at the past, if the client said that, look, build me a call center for 200 FTEs, like you said, the service provider's objective would have been, how do I take that to 300 FTEs? And answering more calls is not necessarily adding value to the client's business, because answering more calls means that, yes, you have more customer interactions, but not all of those customer interactions may be positive. Whereas if you're talking about a higher NPS, it could probably mean more interactions or less interactions, but it means higher quality, more value-added interactions. And that is better for the end customer, that's better for our client, and that's better for Conduent as well, because we are able to demonstrate value and we're also able to probably generate a higher margin in the process.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm at Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.